When discussing the most closed and dictatorial countries in the world, the answer almost always points to North Korea. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or more commonly known as North Korea, is recognized as one of the most isolated and secretive nations on the planet. It is governed by a totalitarian regime that controls nearly every aspect of its citizens' lives. This country serves as an extreme example of a closed and dictatorial state. The North Korean government not only maintains strict control over information, but also does not tolerate any dissent. A vast network of political prison camps is used to silence opposition. In North Korea, citizens do not have fundamental freedoms such as freedom of speech, assembly, and religion. They are constantly monitored by state security apparatuses. The country's economy is centrally planned and highly inefficient, leading to widespread poverty and chronic famine. North Korea is also heavily dependent on foreign aid, particularly from China, to sustain its population. Of course, North Korea's emergence as a closed-off nation did not happen in a vacuum. The roots of its isolation and dictatorship can be traced back to the aftermath of World War II. In 1945, after Japan's defeat and surrender, the Korean peninsula, now divided into North and South Korea, was split into two occupation zones. The Soviet Union controlled the northern part, while the United States controlled the southern part. Initially, this division was intended as a temporary measure to disarm Japanese forces and prepare for Korean independence. However, the rising Cold War tensions between the two superpowers made reunification impossible. The two major powers could not agree on the future of the peninsula, which resulted in the establishment of two separate states in 1948. The Communist Democratic People's Republic of Korea in the north and the Pro-American Republic of Korea in the south. In the south, the Republic of Korea was founded with Syngman Rhee as its first president, while in the north, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea was established with Kim Il-sung as its supreme leader. In the north, Kim Il-sung, a former communist guerrilla fighter against Japan, quickly consolidated his power with Soviet backing. He established a Stalinist dictatorship and created a strong personality cult around himself. Kim Il-sung portrayed himself as an all-knowing, benevolent leader and a savior of the Korean people. Alongside a highly centralized system, he adopted the Juche ideology, which emphasized self-reliance and independence as guiding principles for the nation. Once he secured his power, Kim Il-sung wasted no time in demonstrating his aggression. On June 25, 1950, North Korean forces invaded South Korea, triggering the Korean War. This war quickly escalated into a devastating conflict, as it was no longer just between the North and South, but became a proxy war between the United States and its allies supporting South Korea, and the Soviet Union and China backing North Korea. The war lasted for 3 years, resulting in millions of deaths among both soldiers and civilians. It devastated infrastructure and economies on both sides of the peninsula. Tragically, the war ended in a stalemate, with no significant gains for either side. In 1953, an armistice agreement was signed, halting hostilities, and a demilitarized zone DMZ was established along the 38th parallel, dividing the two Koreas. The Korean War had a profound impact on North Korea. While it solidified Kim Il-sung's position as the supreme leader, the war left the country in ruins. Infrastructure was destroyed, the economy collapsed, and millions of lives were lost. This experience reinforced Kim's belief in building a militarily strong and self-sufficient state, leading to further isolation and North Korea becoming even more closed off from the outside world. Following the war, Kim Il-sung focused on rebuilding North Korea under the principles of Juche. This ideology emphasized political independence, economic self-sufficiency, and military self-reliance. However, in practice, it translated into strict state control over all aspects of life, centralized economic planning, and a powerful military. Kim Il-sung adopted a Soviet-style planned economy, where the state controlled all production and distribution. Priority was given to heavy industries, especially those supporting military development. Initially, North Korea's economy grew rapidly, fueled by aid from the Soviet Union. However, despite advocating self-reliance, Kim Il-sung understood the necessity of a strong military to maintain his regime and deter invasions. By the 1990s, the concept of military first emerged, prioritizing the military above all else. Alongside Juche, Kim Il-sung also established an extreme personality cult. As previously mentioned, he was portrayed as a great, all-knowing leader and savior. State propaganda spread narratives of his greatness, and his portraits were displayed everywhere. To reinforce this propaganda, Kim Il-sung harshly punished anyone who dared to criticize him. He allowed no political opposition, and every aspect of life was strictly monitored and controlled by the state. Security agencies, such as the Ministry of State Security, brutally suppressed any form of dissent. In 1994, Kim Il-sung passed away and his son Kim Jong-il took over as the leader of North Korea. This transition marked the first hereditary succession in a communist country, solidifying the continuation of the Kim dynasty. Like his father, Kim Jong-il was also surrounded by a strong personality cult. He was depicted as a beloved, genius, and visionary leader. State propaganda exaggerated his achievements, often to absurd levels. During the mid-1990s, North Korea suffered a severe famine known as the Arduous March. This disaster was caused by several factors, including the collapse of the Soviet Union, which led to the loss of economic aid, as well as natural disasters and severe mismanagement. Hundreds of thousands, possibly millions, of North Koreans perished due to starvation and disease. In response to the crisis, Kim Jong-il reinforced the Sungun military-first policy, diverting scarce resources to the military while the general population struggled to survive. He also intensified efforts to develop nuclear weapons, viewing them as crucial for ensuring the regime's security and international leverage. Despite diplomatic efforts, including the 1994 agreed framework and the six-party talks in the early 2000s, North Korea continued its nuclear weapons program. After Kim Jong-il's death in 2011, his son, Kim Jong-un, took over as North Korea's leader. At the time, Kim Jong-un was in his late 20s, making him the youngest head of state in the world. Initially, many doubted his ability to govern, but he quickly consolidated power. He carried out a series of purges to eliminate officials perceived as threats, including the execution of his own uncle, Jang Song-thaek, in 2013. Under Kim Jong-un's rule, North Korea has significantly advanced its nuclear weapons and ballistic missile programs. The country has conducted multiple nuclear tests and launched intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, capable of reaching the U.S. mainland. He introduced the Byung-jin policy, which aimed to develop both nuclear weapons and economic growth simultaneously. Despite this, his leadership remains heavily reliant on propaganda and an extreme personality cult, portraying the Kim family as godlike figures destined to rule North Korea. North Korea remains one of the most repressive states in the world, with extensive human rights abuses, political prison camps, and a brutal security apparatus. The country also relies heavily on illicit activities, such as drug trafficking, counterfeiting, and cyber attacks to generate foreign currency. Despite occasional signs of increased access to outside information, it remains uncertain whether North Korea will undergo significant political change in the near future or continue its path of isolation and dictatorship.